another edition of MMI Live. I'm your host, Jess, Managing Director at Mitchell Martin, one of the largest employee-owned staffing companies in the U.S. We are back, and boy, do we have a treat for you today. We are so lucky to be joined by the definition of a transformational leader in every aspect of the word. We are discussing topics near and dear to his heart and very hot on the minds of everyone at the moment. Automation, AI, emerging technologies. You're going to want to stick around to hear everything that Max has to say. But without further ado, a very special welcome to Max Cheprasov. Max, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you for hosting me today.
We're very excited to have you.
It's been a while since we talked about this, so I'm glad we're kicking this off.
I know. And it's like on the mind of everyone at the moment. So very apt for the listeners here today. For those of you that don't know, you've probably seen Max at a number of events, speaking engagements around the world, Bloomberg TV. He's been featured in esteemed publications throughout the tenure of your career. It's actually pretty crazy. But for those of you that don't know, Max is a trailblazer in digital transformation and frankly, a mastermind of operational excellence. For the past 10 years and more, actually, it's beyond a decade at this point, he's emerged as a leading figure in seamlessly integrating artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, low-code, no-code technologies, and a spectrum of other emerging innovations to not only advance, but to revolutionize business operations and outcomes, frankly. As the world's inaugural Chief Automation Officer, we'll get into that, Max's visionary leadership has been instrumental in embedding, operational excellence into the DNA of global enterprises. So Max, quite the intro, quite the career, frankly, and we'll expound on that in a second. But as someone who's consistently pushed the boundaries of technology and operational strategy, your experience has really sparked curiosity just across a widespread market. Can you give us a deeper insight into some of the transformative projects and ideas that have managed to capture everyone's attention?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for a wonderful introduction and thanks for hosting me. Just in terms of a brief intro, I've been fortunate to spend all of my career in organizations that have been creating unique and innovative digital experiences for customers of all sizes and different industries. And my primary focus within those organizations has been on business and digital transformation within the intersection of people, process, and technology, and essentially just continuously looking for ways to advance the way the business operates and services clients and innovates. So talking about the Chief Automation Officer and how that came about, a few years ago, around 2016, I was working within a global enterprise where we achieved, pretty high level, good enough of a level of operational excellence. And it was kind of hard to really move the needle on profitability and efficiencies and effectiveness with just the legacy methods and tools. And that same year, in 2016, the earliest forms of artificial intelligence, if you remember, began to sort of emerge out of the labs, and startups began to emerge with like real practical AI that you could use in the business. And one examples of our early pilots was focused on applying artificial intelligence in the form of natural language processing to help our business analysts gather data from different sources and translate that data into insights. That saved us a lot of time and allowed our analysts to focus more of their time on valuable, deeper, actionable insights instead of that manual data hunt from different sources and translating that, across different manual reports in Excel and PowerPoints in different formats. And so that, product had such a, noticeable impact, but also the other emerging technologies told us that likely we can get the same benefit in other places in the business. And just, in coincidence, in that same time, 2017, I came across a research paper from McKinsey Institute, and they were talking about the analysis they've done across different industries and occupations. And they found that across all industries, roughly about 60% of job occupations have 30% of tasks that are highly automatable with technologies at that time. And what was interesting is that that number was continuously growing year after year as they refreshed that report. You could see that, additional 5% or so every year, emerging technologies were evolving, and you could capture a larger pie of the use cases. So that sparked the idea that AI and automation needs to be integrated into the DNA of our business, and we need to use it to our competitive advantage at scale.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that you brought up that are really interesting. So one, we're talking back in 2016, 2017 timeframe. I think a lot of people are hearing AI, and with the rise of generative AI, it's become just this, really hot topic issue. But AI has been around for a while. And there have been a lot of companies, like yourself and leaders like yourself who've embraced it for quite some time and seen it, really drive transformative, practices within the business. The other thing that you mentioned that I think is interesting is, how do you, and maybe you can expound on this, is how do you embrace it within the enterprise at scale? We have a lot of customers who maybe focus on one sliver of the business and they have some success, but to get it to the entire enterprise is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
What do you tell those folks?
I think the fact that everybody's talking about AI now, and specifically generative AI, is because it's so easy to use, right? I think it's, technology has become so much closer to people over the past few years. And, AI has been, like you said, AI has been around for a long time, but practical AI, the one we can actually plug and play within the business, which is still hard to do, but it's here and people can feel it, can touch it, they can experience it. But to do it at scale, it takes a little bit of extra work. It's more than just plug and play, right? It's a huge transformation initiative, and I think that's the reason I think a lot of companies are stumbling with AI and intelligent automation solutions, because they mainly focus on either continue to experiment with it, or they just focus on one domain or one business function only. They're not thinking about how to change their DNA with AI in mind. And so I think there are 7 key ingredients. If I have to think about how do you embrace automation and AI and emerging technologies at scale within an enterprise, there are 7 ingredients based on my experience that I've seen make it work, with one caveat, which I'm going to mention at the end. One, you have to have a vision and a strategic roadmap. There needs to be a purpose behind in the integration of AI and emerging technologies into the business. And it's critical to have that North Star. It needs to be a very simple mission statement that people can repeat anywhere in the business, and they need to understand why and how it connects to the business strategy. For example, for us at Dentsu, we called it, a mission of elevating human potential. We wanted to use AI to really bring the best of human soft skills like creativity, innovation, strategic thinking, problem solving. We wanted to take out that mundane, repeatable work that everybody dreads every single day. So having a broad mission like that, elevate human potential by integrating AI and automation into everything you do, kind of paints the North Star. And then you need to really build awareness. Everybody talks about AI, but everybody has a very different understanding of what's possible, what's hype versus reality. And somebody could just do a quick survey. You can ask 10 people in your company and see if they have the same response with respect to what is AI and how do you think AI should impact our business, and what kind of benefits can we get from it, right? Everybody's going to likely have different answers. So that means you have misalignment. So in addition to strategic roadmap and vision, you need to have alignment and awareness and sort of basic kind of education on what is AI 101, right? Beyond that, sort of, you need to beyond that, you need to, well, I mean, look, people are get distracted by shiny objects. First it was RPA, then low code, no code. People continue to jump from new technologies that are emerging, thinking that that's the next technology is a replacement for what came before it, and that's not the case. With Gen AI, we're seeing that this is a continuation. It's an additional tool in the toolkit of digital transformers or change agents or citizen developers or IT technologists. It's not a replacement or displacement for anything else. Gen AI, in my opinion, is a way to improve productivity. while RPA still is very necessary if you're looking to improve your business workflows or connect, disconnected systems. But we can dive into that more. But going back to sort of the 7 ingredients, just high level, because I stopped at, the vision, the awareness, but, building, establishing governance, number 3, right? You got to have your protocols for safe and secure and ethical use of AI, right? You need to build the right team around that and create a center of excellence or expertise, for example, right? And you need to get some real work done to show the value of your AI projects. And so that you have internal advocates and sponsors and references for future projects. Because if your first project fails with AI, it's unlikely your CFO is going to listen to you again. And I think that's why it's critical to sort of nail that first project. And it's become a lot easier now. Like in 2016, it was hard to do with natural language processing to achieve something, real and tangible, and it took months of work. Today, you can have your low code, no code platforms show you the quick wins pretty quickly, right? So you can show the CFO the before and after, and the results are always incredible. So having that work done is important. And then you gotta have a pipeline of like, what are you doing next? As you move on from your first project, how do you embrace AI and automation and Gen AI at scale? So there needs to be a tactical roadmap, and you need to also measure all those results and talk about those results every chance you get, because this is not a one and done project, right? This is going to be a long-term transformation journey. And with every project, you need to sort of celebrate the success and talk about all the different forums, especially if you're in a large company, a global organization dispersed across different geographies. You got to join different meetings and talk to different executives and show what AI can do, and so they could contribute to your pipeline. That part that I talked about, sort of the education and awareness, is important because that builds the mindset, which is very important, to change that mindset in the organization for people to know which use cases or challenges within the business should be brought up to the top of prioritization list for it to be addressed with AI. And so, but last but not least here, having partnerships, the right partnerships with the right, professional services firms, technology partners, with Mitchell Martin, to hire the right staff.
We didn't pay him to say that, folks.
I did not get paid to say that. Yes. But you also need to have, as you're sort of building and evolving these partnerships, you also need to look into the future, right? You need to have your hands on the crystal ball and see, what is it that's emerging beyond Gen AI today? What's next? And, if you reserve part of your team to continuously scout and search for the next emerging startup and how it fits into your business, the more advantage you'll have as an early adopter of these technologies. And so, with all of that being said, kind of that being kind of the basics of the kind of the ingredients to successful sort of scale of AI, I think the caveat that I mentioned to all of this is that all of this only works well within the business if it's running like a well-oiled lean machine. If you have a pile of process debt and technical debt in every corner of your house, and you lack the talent to embrace AI at scale, you need to get the foundation down first before you sort of focus on this. But I think automation can also serve as a great catalyst to the conversation about reorganizing, restructuring, re-engineering things in order to sort of create the necessary foundation.
Yeah, I love what you said about the communication component, because I think that's it. It breaks down a lot between this strategy, what do we want to do with this, to everyone in the organization having a clear understanding of what we're doing, why we're doing it, how can they contribute. Those ideas bubbling up are so critical, because you have people on the ground that are doing that job every day. They have great ideas of how they could probably be more efficient. And, obviously we can it might be a different a different broadcast topic to have you back on, but I mean, that kind of leans into those, citizen development programs and things that you've been so successful with over your career. But I think that component, also drives the change management side, which we saw over the past 8 years be so challenging in, RPA and intelligent automation when it's not done right. And there were so many programs that failed, unfortunately, because there wasn't enough buy-in. It wasn't clear who was running it. There wasn't a communication strategy, and people didn't, they didn't kick off with a good use case, or it was too simple or too complex, and didn't get the buy-in, didn't have the ROI. The list goes on, but like you said, those 7 things are so critical in building out this strategy, and then implementing each of them effectively is the way to do it. When you think about that, from an ownership perspective, we're talking about a lot of things, obviously, in the IT organization, but is it the CIO that's driving this? Is it your CEO, CMO? Like, who's responsible for this at the end of the day?
I get that question a lot, and I think it largely depends on where your business is in terms of readiness for change and sort of the transformation with AI in mind. I think the reason being, that I purposefully picked the chief automation officer role was because there was enough COOs and CIOs and CEOs who had, commitments to their agendas and objectives, and this required to be a full-time job to orchestrate all of this and to build this from the ground up. That it was a full-time job, and it's really a multi-dimensional, multifunctional orchestration. Everybody is involved in this. This is not just an IT project. This is not just a business domain project somewhere. You are, if we talk about the DNA of the business, you're going to be changing the experience of employees as much as the experience of your customers and your vendors and your partners. So every brain is in the game, and I think this is the reason I think why citizen development is so important to this. And we'll get, hopefully we'll get to it today, but if not, maybe next time. But going back to sort of, who's driving this? I looked up on LinkedIn today, and there's so many companies that are looking for chief AI officers these days, and chief ethics officers, chief transformation, chief automation, and chief digital officers. And a lot of them have 80% of the scope of responsibilities is pretty much the same. It's within that same context of what we've been talking about, which is transforming operations for excellence, transforming those experiences of a company for excellence with driven by AI and driven by emerging technologies. So who gets to do it depends on the CEO's decision in my mind, but it needs to be a full-time focus.
I agree with you. And I think that's part of, where we saw some of those things go off the rails in the past, is that it was unclear who's owning it. And, sometimes it was just a sliver of someone's responsibility, and it's a full-time job, like you said. So kind of going back to what you were talking about a little earlier, when you're saying, a lot of the people in our organizations now, the reason that AI, and specifically Gen AI, has, I think, taken off so much is people can see it, they can touch it, they can feel it. You said a lot of people are more connected now to technology than we've ever been. I don't want to date myself, but I do remember a landline phone. I had a beeper at one point. We've come a long way since then. We have tiny computers in our pockets. So from just a general employee perspective, there's a lot more technology awareness. There's, we have, cord cutters at home who are completely digital. We've abandoned, cable for one example. You have people using ChatGPT for everything. But what do you do with the folks in the organization, the non-digital native generations, the folks who are hesitant, they're resistant to that change? I mean, how do you ensure that they're part of that transformation, because they are a key component of a lot of all organizations at this point?
Yeah, I think it's key to bring everybody in the company along on the transformation journey, and to really understand well where everybody stands in the beginning stages of it. Again, like from my experience when we first kicked it off at Dentsu and asked all the senior executives to describe what they think is automation, what they can get from automation, kind of helped us understand where we need to spend time on building up that general awareness and the skill set. But we didn't stop there. We continued to create course tracks across the whole business and invited people to join in. This was not a mandatory exercise, but with every project, what I've noticed is that the automation champions, especially those embedded within the citizen development program, had experienced so much productivity gain and so much change within their day-to-day experiences that they sort of bragged about their skills in every meeting they could. They would go to their manager, they would talk to in the team meetings and say, look, I've built this digital assistant that is doing 20% of what I had to do previously manually, and as a result, I'm getting to do all this other fun stuff now. So, and I was able to do that by learning, getting that knowledge from the Automation Center of Excellence. And then all of a sudden, those people who tend to resist change, they see that they see the outcomes, and usually they raise their hands second, and they go, okay, how do I do that? How do I also stand out? People are competitive by nature, and so that's sort of the way to I guess create the fear of missing out.
Yeah, like that little FOMO in the organization is always a good thing. I think that what you said is so critical. It's like I saved 20% of my time on these repetitive, mundane tasks to free up to go do something else that I enjoy or that is driving value within the organization. I think a lot of times when we're talking about this emerging technology, it happened a lot with RPA, and I can imagine that it's happening now with AI. People get a little scared. All you hear is AI is going to take over all these jobs and all of these things. And there's a lot of fear within, this space, especially for non-digital natives. And, I think that kind of goes back to that change management of educating people, like you said, and kind of hosting those workshops and bringing them into the fold. But for those that are still, apprehensive, still scared that this is going to take over, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there isn't like a particular demographic that's sort of is shying away from embracing AI solutions. I think there is the way to get everybody on board was sort of for us to show the real results, and the people who were exposed to daily mundane kind of tasks obviously were the first people to raise their hand and say, hey, I want to build a solution with you. I don't want to be doing this kind of stuff. I want to be focused on something that's more impressive, more innovative and creative. And I think most resistance that I've seen actually comes from middle management, who is incentivized based on the number of people that they manage or number of projects that they do. So it's not based on sort of the value that they create. And I think as soon as I think it's important to bring every layer of the organization to a certain level of understanding of how this will impact their jobs, whether you're the one who's going to be using AI or still going to be managing people who are using AI. There's a different change management component that goes into that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think every middle manager is like, not sure how I like this, but there's a place for it. There's a place for that conversation and to open that up and again drive that awareness. I do want to make some time for citizen development because it's been a huge part of your career. It is a massive feather in your cap. From your perspective and folks who maybe haven't heard that term before. I think there's a lot of organizations who are just getting started again with digital transformation, with getting some, low level RPA stuff going. What is citizen development? How did you bring it to such a massive scale within the organizations that you have?
Yeah, I think what we realized at one point as we began our transformation journey, as we sort of looked at the pipeline of opportunities, as we created that awareness and allowed people to understand what is real versus hype and how to apply today's technology to today's real problems. We through workshops and brainstorming sessions, we ended up with hundreds and hundreds of good ideas on what could be optimized and transformed and automated using AI. What we saw that there's just not enough capacity on the IT team side or in the automation COE side to handle all of the use cases in a reasonable time frame. So if we focus on the largest projects first, which makes sense, and we focus on the top 5% of those use cases, it's going to occupy all of the resources. So what do we do with the rest of them if we have to wait 12, 18 months for resources to free up unless we do some staff augmentation? But still, there's just so much microscopic activities that exists within different, individual kind of work or teamwork, or unique, experiences within the business. And so the idea was to upskill the process experts and non-technical business owners on how to use low-code, no-code platforms to build their own apps and digital assistants for individual use and for team use under the governance, under the protocols of the global automation COE, in partnership with IT, obviously, to make sure that this is still being built. What's being built is being built, securely, safely, with reusable components. So that needed to go upfront into the training for citizen developers. And citizen developer, really, what is that? It's any employee who wants to become a developer. They're not sort of your full stack developer or their software engineer by trade. They still have their day jobs in finance or in marketing or in sales. But in addition, they see opportunities where they could transform what they do and how they could benefit from AI on their team. And they want to gain those skills, and they want to gain the access to those tools that can help them make that change. And so we equip them with the training, with the tools, with the knowledge, and allow them to build solutions, which goes into a digital repository that others in the business can reuse. So that's been very helpful in helping us approach automation as a hybrid model, where we focus on both ends of the pipeline. And what I've seen actually is, if you look at the long tail of all the use cases and the benefits that you can get from that in aggregate, sometimes that far exceeds the opportunities that are, at the top 5%.
Yeah, I think from getting everyone involved in that, and obviously that's the key. And like finding, I like what you said about the microscopic use cases that like, there's no way your IT team is going to have time, nor is that the best use of their times. They're working on much more complex, larger impact, but all of those micro use cases do add up and can be very sizable over time.
Yeah, and the other reason is because your large, use cases for AI and automation sometimes require you to put together a business case. It takes a lot of work to do that and get all the approvals, while you can, get real, applications built pretty quickly within the citizen development group, and they have access to the same pipeline. And you can also introduce here some of the crowdsourcing, where everybody in the company, because the ideal state is everybody in the company becomes an automation consumer. You only need to have 3 to 5% of your organization to be upskilled to be developers, right? And if they're developing based on the ideas that are being crowdsourced into this one centralized pipeline of use cases. And as developers are sort of, choosing what to prioritize, they're not building business cases. They may use social signals. You can use social upvoting in the company. If people are finding that a specific business challenge that needs to be addressed is, something that they can relate to, they can upvote it with likes, right? And it can be routed or prioritized for somebody with capacity on the citizen development side to do that.
That's awesome. I love you could upvote that. Like,
gamification is very important, right? It's gamification. It's really, also you can integrate into this the idea of earning bonus points for the best ideas, points for most solutions developed. And, if you really want to get creative for this, you can convert those points into monetary bonuses, and just to really incentivize people to participate in this whole transformation.
I love that. Obviously, citizen development is a whole other topic in and of itself. There's certainly more to it, and you've done a phenomenal job of explaining that over several different platforms and podcasts and publications and things. So for those of you that are out there that want to learn more about citizen development, how Max has been so successful in implementing that and driving that type of change within organizations at a very large scale globally, I would encourage you to take a look at some of those things that are published. Max, I really appreciate your time. There's so much more we could go into. You really have had a phenomenal career. I'm excited to see what's next and how you're going to take on AI in this space by storm, because I know it's coming.
It's an exciting topic. Look, everybody should embrace AI. It's the only way to have a competitive advantage these days. So hopefully this is going to be helpful to the audience.
I think it will be. So thanks so much again.
Thank you.
For those of you who are not, again, familiar with Max, please follow him on LinkedIn. He's a great follow, always posting a lot of really interesting information. You can find a lot of his publications there. And for those of you that are not following Mitchell Martin, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but hit that follow button. We're having a lot of, speakers and thought leaders like Max come on and talk about real practical advice, things that they've actually been through and implemented, such as Max. So again, thanks so much for your time, and we'll see you next time.